I want to. We were talking in the WhatsApp, and I kind of want to bring to the podcast as well, just because I want to hear your thoughts. But we were talking about transfer fees in there. And as you know, I got a bit passionate about the discussion, as I do sometimes in the WhatsApp. What's your thoughts on the level of transfers? We've seen a lot of big money moves made this summer, not just in England, but away from England as well. But do you think transfer fees are very inflated now, and that is impacting, certain, lower level clubs? And as we were talking in the group chat about ticket prices and all the rest of it, do you think it has that knock-on effect with the world of football in England now?
It 100% does, but at the same time, greed is at the forefront of it. Because, like I said, people, funny enough, even if you listen to Talk Sport, whenever people talk about things increasing, such as ticket prices, merchandising, and kits and everything, they always put it down to the fee they have to pay for a player and the wages, which I think is incorrect. And mainly you see Simon Jordan usually, and obviously as a former owner makes sense, but I say no, it's greed. Because they can still make profit without having to charge these inflated prices. The reason why they charge inflated prices is because they want more money. And what they do is they use the scapegoat of transfer fees and wages as an excuse to say, we need to increase the prices of these things to make money. No, you don't. No. What you found is an opportunity to increase those prices for more profits because we're having to pay more for things. You don't have to, or a lot of clubs don't have to. Because you see in countries like Germany, they don't charge. Everyone's paying higher. They don't charge ridiculous inflated fees.
Spain's the same.
Spain's the same as some of their ticket prices. But what it is in England, because obviously there's a lot of money here and clubs realize we can make a lot of money, they increase the prices and they use these factors as excuses for them to justify some of the prices. I went to go see the Arsenal kit. Just the shirt alone was £120. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. And then if you want the one which is in the replica,
the vapor one, the match day one,
that's £85. And I was like, just for the shirt alone, I like almost £30. Like, how can you even justify that, considering how much it costs to make these items? But then they'll say transfer fee is just ridiculous. I'll say this: the only people are to blame for the transfer fees, I'll say, are the big clubs.
Yep, 100%.
The reason why I say it's the big clubs is because they've become, what's happened is a lot of them have got rid of their recruitment teams. So a lot of them are now relying on maybe their technical directors or the contacts of the technical directors to actually source players. And so what happens is that no one is doing what clubs used to do back in the day, which is sourcing their own young players from early. Yep. So what they do is they allow all these other clubs to do the hard work of sourcing these players showing a bit of potential. And then then they have to pay an inflated fee to bring in these players. When they could have done this, no one wants it. These big clubs don't want to take risks on nurturing players anymore. So because they're having to pay big prices, that has a knock-on effect to everyone else. Because now people are baselining and saying, if I want to sell my player, I'll sell this player for this price. When they want to buy a player, because of the baseline and stuff, what even the average player goes for, they're having to pay the price. So for instance, you look at Johan Wissa going for 55 million, outrageous. Newcastle wanted to spend 60 million on Strand Larson, who's done nothing for the Premier League. It's outrageous. Newcastle having to pay the amount of money that they paid for, I forgot his name, Wolves.
Wolves. The tall guy, I know you're talking about.
Let's pronounce his name. For a guy, he didn't even play a full season last season. That's what people need to understand. And they're paying like 80-something million euros for an unproven player. This is the kind of craziness that goes on now, that players who have no reputation, with them nothing in the game, are going for ridiculous amounts of money. And that's because clubs are very lazy. One, in terms of sourcing players, and two, in terms of using the academy. The academy is a big source for bringing through players where you don't need to spend that amount of money. And clubs are just neglecting their academy players altogether. And so because of that, you're forcing yourself to go out to the market to buy inflated prices for a lot of bang average players. I can understand if players are over a certain stature and you're spending, but a lot of these players are bang average and do not even justify the fee that you pay for them. So it just has a knock-on effect. And until these clubs get a grip and start finding other ways to procure players, it's going to continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. I speak literally just before we jumped on this podcast, I was speaking about, from a Chelsea perspective, we're going out, we're buying Facundo Bonanotto from Bright. Oh, we've loaned him, but it's no obligation, no mandatory. You know, we brought in Garnacho, we've got Gittins, all these players. You know, we've as a club, we've been known very, obviously, we've got a very successful youth setup and system there. A lot of our players don't come through the system anymore. They move on. Look at Rio Nganomo, who's now at Liverpool. So all these sort of players that we used to bring through, the Loftus-Cheeks, the Mason Mounts, the Reece James, I suppose Chalobah's probably the last one that you could probably talk about in that sense.
Abraham, I mean, you guys
Hudson
have
Odoi.
brought through a lot of young, decent players.
But it's stopped now. Like everything you've just said, it's the reason it stopped is because we're just throwing money at players.
Some of the players who are playing in the Championship now. I forgot there's a player in midfield. I think it was Casey Palmer. I was watching. Go back to Chelsea. Yeah. I mean, you've put through a lot of people from your system.
Yeah. Even Solanke, I know he's not been a good striker, but he's come through. He's still earning a good living. He's playing, still at Tottenham and all the rest of it. But I just think football's changed now. I know people keep saying, the football's ruined by transfers, but that's because if you want to win things now, you can't. People just want instant success, and
no one's thinking long term.
No one's thinking long term. No one's thinking about. I suppose Chelsea are a little bit in a way by buying younger players, but they're not proven. And you're buying out of the 10 players that you buy, one's probably decent.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's pointless. But you might as well go and use your youth system and nurture players through that way rather than spending 20, 15 million on this South American. We're looking at Robinho's son right now. So Robinho that used to play for City, because he's South American and because he's linked to, like, he's got the name. Us and Liverpool are trying to buy him, and we're in a bidding war with Real Madrid. I'm just like, we don't even need him. Where is he going to play? How is he going to fit into our squad?
Is the thing. And like I said, I'll give you an example. Like, even my club, Arsenal, we went and bought Marino for about 37.5 million. He hasn't proven to be a good, like, for his position, hasn't proven to be a good.
He heard you at the international break, though, because he scored some good goals.
The funny thing is, if you actually watch the game, you won man of the match because he scored a hat.
Yeah.
He wasn't that great as a midfielder.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Scored a hat trick.
Right place, right time.
Exactly. But then it's like, when you look at what we had Wanyeri coming through the academy. Miles Lewis-Skelly, by default, is a central midfielder coming through the academy. Here was players you could use and nurture, and you didn't nurture them. Like, the only clubs who were forced to do it, and in fairness, they do have a history of it, Barcelona, because of some of the financial. I mean, they're still spending ridiculously sometimes. But through when they went into debt, they brought through quite a lot of youthful players. So they're giving Gavi opportunities, Pedri opportunities. Lamine Yamal come through their academy system because, like I said, they couldn't go out and spend the way they did. They had a centre-back, I've forgotten his name, that came through their academy. He was 13 last season, I've forgotten his name. So they've had to bring in... Balde's come from there. I don't know, I think they signed Balde. But he's another youthful that's come through their ranks. And you're looking at that as well. If you operate that way, you don't need to go and spend as much as you do. And what that would happen, that would then bring the market value back down if clubs aren't spending as much as they do. Because when you need to sell players, and clubs are like, oh, we don't really have to play ball because we have other options, people will start to realise and bring down the prices of the players and realise we can't just... the value of is double the price of what he's worth or triple what he's worth, and clubs will accept it.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because, like I said, you want your club to do well. You want to see Champions League, Premier League. So I get it to an extent that you might need to go out and pay 100 million for a particular player, but that shouldn't be for everyone. Like you said, Newcastle is spending money left, right, centre on players, and you have to question, have they done enough this season to even, give themselves a good chance to get into the top 4? I don't think they have. But I get it for some players. I mean, Liverpool just broke the record twice, the transfer record twice in one transfer window.
Oh, there you go.
So, I mean, I get it. Fans want to see the best players at their club, but I think if you want that, that's fine. But then you can't, I don't want to hear talk about, the football's been ruined because, which one do you want? Do you want your football club to be successful and buy the right players for the right price, which is a fair argument?
Yeah, and I even touched on that, MV, because you're talking about everyone likes to have the debate as to who ruined football and everything.
Mm.
Obviously, like, things changed when Roman Abramovich came in, because obviously when you talk about some of the fees, I mean, I know in comparison now, it wasn't really high fees. What it was is that Chelsea bought a lot of players and could pay them higher wages than other clubs. But really and truly, Chelsea didn't really pay at the start, didn't really pay crazy fees for players.
We weren't.
What it is that they brought a lot of players and could pay higher wages. That's what it was. And what people complain is that, we can't spend the way Chelsea was. But Chelsea didn't really. There's only the odd few players where they spent a lot of money on, which I think like Fernando Torres. Even Eden Hazard, you didn't pay that much for him. I think it was 40 million, if I remember correctly.
I think it was less than that. I think it was less.
Yeah, you didn't pay, Chelsea just bought a high volume of players, which is where clubs complain. We can't compete with how many players they can buy in a transfer window. But obviously they changed things, but I wouldn't say Chelsea ruined the market. What it did is it changed in terms of, okay, now if we want to buy players at premium, we can understand that we can be outbid by Chelsea. So it puts the price up a bit. They didn't really, even when City came, because City, what Peter's saying, City brought in a high turnover of players, quality players, by the way, but didn't pay ridiculously high fees.
They don't.
And they still don't pay ridiculously high fees for players. So when people talk about Chelsea and City, I'm like, no, they didn't ruin. They just changed the landscape of football, spending in football. The two clubs that ruined football, because I would like to say, Real Madrid had always been spending high money, and no one complained that they ruined football. But it's ridiculous, not ridiculous. They spent high fees in comparison to what the market value was for high players at the time. No one complained. It was, like I said, as we said in the group chat, for me, the two clubs that ruined the transfer market, PSG and Barcelona. Where are the
100%.
two clubs happen now? When PSG triggered Neymar's release clause, the ricochet effects of that is what changed.
It's not been the same since.
Not been the same since. Because obviously when you realise, you can buy a player close to 200 million, and then Barcelona would have bought Dembele for 100 and something million, Griezmann for 100 and something million, that changed everything.
Yeah.
Coutinho for 130 something million. As soon as you touch the prices for those kind of players, everyone said, hold on, if Coutinho's going for that price, is going for that price, Coutinho, who hasn't been consistent, Dembele, who was still 20 at the time, who hadn't really played that much, only 3 years of football. Just hold on, if you can spend that much, the new baseline for an upcoming potential player, 70 million, 80 million, that's how much. And that changed the landscape of football since then.
Yeah, it's not good at all. And I'm just looking at Chelsea now. So Chelsea have only got 4 players. I'm not proud of this either, before I say this, but we've got 4 players that are over 100 million, and that's Kai Havertz, 100 million euros. Romelu Lukaku was 113 million euros, which again I'm not proud of. Yeah. The two that I think potentially will be given a good run for their money, Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo.
Yeah.
But I'm not using those 4 players to back up what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I think I agree with you 100%. I think PSG definitely inflated the market. I think Barca did the same. Yeah. But I just think the fee is the fee. I think as football fans, do I really care how much a club's spending? Not really. It's not my money, so I don't necessarily care.
Same here. It's for me, it's I never care about the fee as long as it's a good player. So for me, it's if you're going to pay 80 million, if Arsenal are going to pay 80 million on a player, and I'm looking for, that's a good player, no problems. My issue with the fee is that I look at the fee and then I look at
the player,
the player, and I was like, that doesn't marry up.
Then it's a problem.
Then that's when I complain, because I'm like, you're overinflating for this average player. What do you think everybody else in the football landscape are going to do? It's if he's going for that price, you definitely want a price for that player.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. But I anyone who's listening to the audio version or even on YouTube, just let us know your thoughts in the comments, because I personally think the fee is the fee. We're in the times that we're in. We've got to remember as well, let's not remember Jermaine Pennant was 16. I'm sure you man signed him for a 1 million. He was the first most expensive teenager. So, football's just evolved. Alan Shearer, did he not go for 50 million to Newcastle? So, times have changed. We just have to, I said in the group, a jar of coffee is £8. I was shocked. I haven't bought a jar of coffee in how long? I like the Nespresso prods, so I'm used to them things. So I'm a bit of a connoisseur, snobby coffee person, but what I'm trying to say is things have just gone up in price.
Yeah, you can't, and that's why I say recruitment's important. Like, I'll end on this. Like, for instance, if I take my club Arsenal, we signed Mosquera for, I think, under 20 million.
Yeah, he looks
I mean,
good.
good debut against Liverpool. He could prove to be a very good bargain. Even when we bought Saliba for about 20 something million at the time.
Yeah.
Even Gabriel was like 20 something million. So
Look what they've done.
Look what they've done. And then look at the prices people are paying for like defenders and so forth. So all it is I'm just saying clubs just need to be a lot smarter with the recruitment.
Yeah.
Because if you're not smarter in recruitment, that's what happens. When you start sniffing for certain players, they're just going to inflate the prices. But just be smart as to who you recruit and when you recruit.